Good evening. Welcome to another Silent Majority episode. I have brother Tanweer with me today. He's an accountant by profession, and his financial literacy is off the scales. He's got a very high IQ in financial literacy. Unfortunately, in spite of having such a high IQ in financial literacy, he was conned over 100K by Muslims, which is unfortunate. Before we do start, this episode is going to cover how there's an endemic that's emerging across our communities, particularly where Muslims or Muslim con artists are targeting Muslim investors and duping them. So this brother is going to tell his story about how he lost 100,000 plus in investment, alongside other sort of key tips in what to look for and what to avoid, because it's becoming more and more acute nowadays, where we're earning a little bit more money, alhamdulillah, but unfortunately there's pariahs out there that are trying to steal our money as well. Before we do start, I'd like to thank my main sponsor, Halal Estate. If you have a property and are a landlord or a tenant looking for a property, reach out to them. They're safe, reliable and trustworthy. Also, Simplex Coaching. If you need mediating, you're having family issues, please reach out to them. They're also able to help. Right, without further ado, Brother Tanweer, your story is quite remarkable, and thank you very much for coming on to our show. I think you'll immensely help our Muslim communities, and far and wide and further afield. You're an accountant by profession. Just tell me about what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me on. So you're right. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm qualified as an accountant, and I specialize in tax. So that's my main remit every day. What I'm dealing with tax legislation, tax law compliance, that kind of stuff. And outside of that, as you say, I'm supposed to be financially literate. I've got a lot of friends and family members who come to me sometimes for financial advice, for stuff to do with investments, etc. And obviously, this is something that most people are always concerned about their money, especially being Muslim, where to put your money, earn a halal sort of income from it, if it's sitting there passively, and those kind of things. So that's pretty much me. I sort of surround myself around entrepreneurship, business, investments, all that kind of jazz.
Thanks, brother. I think as our generations in this country are progressing, so a second, third, fourth generation, we're steering away from the bricks and mortar that our fathers and uncles did, and they invested in properties, which is a no-brainer. But because of the interest deterrent, we're looking at stocks and bonds and other schemes, investment schemes. And sometimes we go to hedge funds, and I like to call them Muslim hedge funds, but really they're Ponzi schemes. So I think this area or this industry that's emerging, there is so much scope for people, genuine people, as investment managers or investment brokers, to come in and help our Muslim communities. Tell me about your story.
Sure. So my story, as you mentioned, I got duped or scammed out of over £100,000, unfortunately. Not just me, but friends and families who lost a significant amount of money as well, which is why I'm so passionate about this field, whereby trying to warn Muslims how not to fall for these traps. So as you mentioned, I've got a finance background, so I've got some sort of awareness of how sort of finance works, economy, etc. Essentially what happened was, because I'm the sort of accounting tax space, I had a friend who reached out to me one day, said, look, Tan, I'd like to get some tax advice of you. I'm receiving some passive income from an investment, which is reaching a few £1,000s every month. And it's coming regularly, coming to my bank account, and I'm a bit concerned of how the tax man will deal with it. So can you just help me how to make it tax efficient, or what can I do? Those kind of things. So I said, okay, this sounds a bit, not something you hear every day. Tell me a little bit more about it. So he provided some more details, screenshots over WhatsApp, and explained a little bit about the business. So I was going to be skeptical at first, but you can't be making £6,000 to £7,000 a month, as he was claiming, straight into your bank account as well. I thought it maybe just be paper money or just figures on paper. But essentially it was coming into his bank account. And I asked about the business. Essentially, it was a mobile phone telecom business, selling mobile phones online. It was a particular niche brand as well. And this person, the owner of the business, essentially was from the community, trusted Muslim individual, and therefore there was a lot of trust around him. And what he was doing was apparently legitimate, and he was making good fun. So my friend was making good money out of it. He was one of the early investors, and to the extent where he packed in his job and working in the warehouse directly with it as a volunteer. So because he wanted to secure his investment, and he was in a position where he could refer other people on. So as he was speaking, I said, look, this sounds too good to be true. It sounds great. So I pressed him on a few questions. So look, you can check out the company, etc. And then eventually I said, look, forget the tax side of it. Let's forget the advice around it. Get me in if you can, because this sounds too good to be true. Maybe that way I can get a bit more understanding. And they said, okay, you know what? He goes, how much would you like to invest? I said, how about £10,000? Yeah, I don't want to come across a bit too cheap either. So enough that there will be enough meat in it, so he can refer me on. So that's what I left him with. And we said, okay, we'll touch base again. And then one day I got a phone call. It was around 11 p.m. just before going to bed. He said, Tan, just letting you know, there's another investment round opening up. Are you still interested? Do you want to invest? I said, yeah, sure, of course. Put my name forward, please. He said, how much was it you wanted to invest again? I said, make it 50,000.
Well, just to stop you there. So the initial 10,000 you invested, did you get a return on that?
So that 10,000 I hadn't given out at that point. I just pledged them out.
Oh, you pledged it.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it was a case of when the next round opportunity opens up, I'll be put forward. So you have to just fill out.
So it was intent.
It was my intent. So that's what I told him. I said, 10 grand, I'm not playing around. Put me forward and put me above whatever ladder you've got in terms of referrals. So when the opportunity came, I said, £50,000. Okay, can you send it in 2 days? I said, yeah, no problem. Had some money set in my account, some savings. And essentially that's what I did. I thought, okay, let's see how it goes now. So that first month passed. And from what he told me, all the track record I could see for the past 18 months, these current investors have been earning between 10 to 12% per month. And I could see from the spreadsheet to show like the returns. And I thought, this sounds too good to be true. Let me see how my one goes. So that first month passed. I was on holiday. I had a very snazzy app they'd given as well. There was an investment broker or investment manager as well who was doing all the admin side. I'd uploaded my passport, driving license, all this stuff. So everything seemed very professional. And then I saw my first month's return on my portfolio, £5,500, at 11% return for that month. I thought,
that's more than people's income.
Exactly. And that was near more than my salary at the time as well, monthly salary. I thought, this sounds amazing. Let me withdraw it. Let's just make sure it's actual cash I'll get in my bank account. And so I pressed the withdrawal, and within about a week or so, the money had hit my bank account and I'd got my profit out. I thought, whoa, it actually does work and it's a legitimate business. Everything's stacking up exactly how I described. And I thought, okay, now I'm in a position I could probably refer it to my friends, my family, those who are close to me. It seemed like a wonderful opportunity, something I don't want them to miss out on. And it's all about who can get in first, lock themselves in, and essentially, inshallah, you can meet your financial goals by just even spending about a year or even less than that. So, but prior to doing that, I thought, let me just do one more thing. Let me go inspect this warehouse, which is South London. It's not too far from me. Let me see, does it all stack up? Is there tangible products there, as they're saying, the mobile phone business? So I arranged that with my friend who'd referred me on. I took down one of my business partners and another friend, drove down, and there was a warehouse, storage facility, and I could see boxes of mobile phones everywhere. And this particular brand from China, which were not your normal Apples and Samsungs, because the margin won't be too great on that. That was part of the story told to us, that these are particular brand. Margins are much greater. It's a higher budget end. So that's why the profits are so great on it. And it's low overheads on eBay, power selling, power seller status, great feedback, all that stuff. So I inspected the stock, took some videos, some pictures of it. I also saw the owner. The owner was there processing orders in the background. And I spoke to him briefly as well. Even prayed Salah behind him. So everything stacked up. He looked like a very practicing brother, 50 plus years. As I was told, respectful person, very humble he was, sounded very nice in that sense. So I left with no doubts. I thought that everything stacks up. There's physical products there.
Just a second. Yeah. I want to rewind.
Yeah.
Because you're a Muslim, mashallah, and this is a Muslim investment opportunity.
Yeah.
Just talk me through the semantics they use to lure you in. So the Muslim semantics, so this is where it gets nasty and brazen.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So everyone involved from the investment managers to the owners of the business, those volunteers, all Muslim, practicing Muslim, beards, using the mashallah, alhamdulillah. The reason why the business is doing so well is barakah. Okay, Allah's put barakah in this. That's why it's beyond our imagination.
That was a tagline.
These are the kind of taglines which are pumped to us. So some things you think are inexplicable, but some things come from Allah, so they are inexplicable.
Yep.
And this is barakah in the business. Don't ask too many questions. So although I tried to press and ask too many questions, maybe greed overcame me, and a bit of negligence. And I thought, you know what? It's too good to be true. Yes, but it's working.
£6,000 in your account.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, let's not ask too many questions there. It's working. And there's enough layers of protection that they've got investment brokers, Muslims, they fear Allah ultimately. Therefore, they're not going to be pulling the wool over my eyes or lying to me or anything of that sort.
Because they fear Allah.
Essentially, that's it. And they'll be accountable at the end of the day. Forget the law, all that stuff. Their judgment, if there is anything shady going on in the background. But from a logical perspective, everything seemed okay. Although if I wanted to dive into detail a bit more with my logical accountancy hat, maybe a bit more red flags would come up, but I sort of part that side.
Can I say that they quelled that side of your brain?
Yeah.
The accountancy, the financial literacy side, from looking the part.
Yeah.
The Muslim appearance.
Yeah.
So you gave them the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely. So a lot of things I would ask for a normal, regular, say, investment opportunity and stuff like that, especially if they're unregulated, I would press them a lot more on those kind of details. But because they're Muslim, that essentially I forgave a lot of things that would normally, my diligence and all that stuff, just washed it, parked it aside. But Islam overcomes this whole thing,
Absolutely.
overshadows it,
Mm.
and therefore I need to put that trust ultimately in their Islam, their belief and stuff. But again, essentially, it looks like they use it as a tool to, or I guess, lie and put deceit over us and things.
Oh, wow. SubhanAllah. Right. That was very important to understand their background and the image that they portray. Now, okay, fast forward now. You've rewinded, fast forward now. So you've invested £50,000.
Yeah.
You've got a return of £5,000. You've done your due diligence. You've gone to the factory. Talk me from there.
So I came back, I was thinking, yeah, it's great. Now I need to get my friends, my family, my siblings in. Great opportunity here for them. And by this time, COVID hadn't hit. COVID was around the corner. Obviously, no one knew about it. So for the next investment opportunity, the next round came in, I'd got sort of gathered about 10 people who were close to me. I said, look, I'm going to put you guys forward because I've had a substantial amount invested in. I'll be given priority of who I want to bring in. So, and there was a referral scheme as well. So this is one of the things you find with these kind of scams or Muslim investment opportunities. They build up a pyramid, if you want to call it that, by you coming in and you bringing more people in, you'll get rewarded, incentivized, because you get a bit of a cutback. Although that wasn't my main driver, I thought, okay, there is a bit of incentive here. From whatever they earn, I'll get a slight percentage as well. Great, keep it in the family, keep it in that sort of network, my community, but we will benefit, we'll loving it. So I brought about 10 people the next round, including my brother, my sister. They put funds in. So here I had a bit of degree of responsibility as well. So I showed them the videos. I said, look, ultimately they trusted me, Muslim, whatever, they knew me as well. So like Tan's saying to invest in it, he's probably asked all the right questions. He's been there himself as well. He knows one of the workers in the warehouse as well. So we're going to go by his word.
Yes, you have skin in the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Skin in the game. And ultimately my reputation's on the line as well. So I don't want to bring them in not being fully sure of what's going on and being confident in the whole investment scheme. So sometimes a few of including my brother is an accountant, he would ask me a few questions from a technical perspective. And again, I just look, it's working. Don't ask too many questions. I don't know the answer, but trust me, it's worked. I've got money into my bank account. Just invest. Just put 10K in, whatever it is. See if it works. If you don't like it, pull your money out after a month or two. And so on the back of that, I'll say 90% of the people I've referred on, they'd invested. They put something in. I don't know how much. Sometimes they could go top it up, whatever. Essentially, eventually I got to a scale where I was saving up money to buy more equity in my property. I thought, rather than keeping the bank account, I can't earn interest. There's not many financial products that you can drive an income from. So rather than leaving it there, doing nothing, being idle in my bank account, let me go invest it in this opportunity here. And I'll refer to this called MMT. It was the telecoms business. MMT was what we referred to as. So I put in my extra funds in my bank account, put it in there. So I've reached over 100K. And what happened was they eventually had a special package out there where if you were above 100K, they had a special VIP department as well, customer service. You'd be getting preferential treatment and all this stuff. So I thought, okay, great. I'm of that status that they'll treat me better and they'll expedite my payments and whatever else I need. So I was pampered in that sense. And I thought, okay, give it a year and I'll reach my financial goals I want to. So as I said, I brought a lot of people in and it was growing. So they would refer people and whatnot, but essentially from my network, because I had the proof, I could show them my portfolio, something, tangible on screen. They were happy to come in.
Right. So you've got to about £100,000 in investment.
Yeah.
You get 10% to 11% return every month, ROI, every month.
Yeah.
What's prevented you from pulling out every month?
So now, if you look at some of the hallmarks of these schemes, what they do is to lure you in. There is the Islam side of it. There is, okay, we've got a great business and whatnot. There is an exclusivity to it as well. So in the sense, there's a lot of demand. People are waiting to get in. If you pull out, you may not have another opportunity to get back in. And the part of the other incentive is the returns are so great. You leave your profit in there, it compounds. They give you this compounding effect. So you can multiply your money very, very quickly because your profit's there, your initial capital, and you get 10% on it, 11%, whatever it is. When COVID hit, we were all worried, businesses are shutting down left, right, and center. We were still hitting 5 to 6% a month. I thought, this is great. Where else are we going to put our money? The economy's getting shut down, you can't buy property, whatever. Leave it in there, it's still getting 5 to 6% because online business, they tend to be immune.
Not to mention your balance as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So so this compounding effect was the incentive, was keep it in there, let it grow faster. And also, you may not get this opportunity again because there was such demand. We knew there was a lot of demand because I had some people trying to get in, they're on a waiting list and they're told not at the moment. So yeah, essentially that's part of the incentive of how we were booked in.
So you didn't take any money out?
I took very little bits out here and there. I took some out they had short window, they had different products out there. So one was like a 2-week window, earn 7% on your capital. So I tried that out. I put quite a chunky amount. The profit came and I was like, okay, this worked as well. This product they brought out on the same company works as well. So I dabbled a lot. I took some money out, but essentially I was still heavily invested in my own.
They had you hook, line and sinker.
I thought I'm going to stay in there for at least a year so I can reach and then what they also had was a projector on their website that with our expected return, rates of return, if you put in such amount, this is how much you'll earn in a year, for example. And generally you double your money within the space of 10 months, for example, with the compounding effect, the sort of expected return the rate. So when you're seeing that calculator and things, you think, whoa, this is amazing. I can't lose out. I can't miss out on this opportunity. I'm not going to really back out now, just be a wimp as such, or, have weak hands, as they call it in the investment world. I'm going to have diamond hands. I'm going to stick in with it. And it's doing well because COVID hit. There's nothing else really out there to invest in, or which is going to be as secure as this.
So that's why you didn't pull out. So psychologically, you're almost like a gambler here.
Yeah.
There's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much in the portfolio to pull out now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're all the way in. Your siblings are all the way in. Your friends are all the way in, and not to mention there's a queue of investors trying to invest.
Exactly. Absolutely.
There's no such thing as easy money, but clearly there is.
Yeah, and that's
in this case.
referring people on, the fact that you've got skin in the game shows that you're not just referring people on.
Yeah.
Whilst you've just pulled out,
Right.
You're still in there. So we're in it together. That was part of the way it works.
Okay. Now talk me through when you realized or when the sky fell on you.
Okay. So what happened was, because the amount of what was told to us, the amount of volume of transactions coming to this guy's bank account, this business, it wasn't fit for purpose. So the bank started to get a bit suspicious. The one bank he had, Lloyd's Bank, I can mention that, no problem. They started to get suspicious and they suspended his account. And what affected that meant was the cash outs that we as investors were requesting at some point were not coming. So this is a lot of pressure then. We would communicate with the admin team, which is the investment broker, and there's some manager saying, what's going on? Why isn't my money coming out? There's concern coming. So because of this pressure that was put on them, they decided to investigate, pop over, and they shared the same accountant. They were just down the road to each other. So what we were told is the investment brokers then popped over and they had a look. We were told, just look, there's some teething issues with the bank. Don't worry, we're opening up another separate bank account. When they went in and investigated, they realized that the stuff he had been telling them in terms of how much profit is generating, the funds in the bank account, how much cash is generating, was all a lie. Now, this is what they knew at that stage. They realized that they've been deceived to a certain degree, and the investors had. And what we were told in terms of how healthy the company was in fact all a sham. So eventually they had to come clean. They realized that there's no way they can spin this in any other way or buy further time. They have to come clean. So about a month or so later, they came clean, did a webinar with all the investors, and we were told that this is what's happened, blamed it all on the individual, the owner of the business, that he's lied to us. We've lost as well. As investment brokers, we had invested, our commissions and whatnot has all disappeared. Our objective is to get all you guys your money back, which is the capital you put in. So that's what we're told. But in that time frame, a lot of close confidence to the investment brokers. They also knew some heavy investors, close people to them. And they were actually putting a lot of pressure on them to get their funds back first. So look, we know what's going on. And there was things going behind the scene where people trying to secure their own money. But the vast amount of investors like myself, we were in the dark. And the first time we heard of it was when this webinar happened by those investment brokers. And they essentially they didn't come fully clean, but we all knew that this whole business that we were sold did not really exist. The money did not exist. But don't worry, we've got a recovery plan. We're going to do something. We're going to take over it and we're going to get you your money back within 12 months. Give us time. Don't report to the police because this could mess up our recovery plan as well. So this is again saying, look, we fear Allah. We've got accountability to him. We're going to do our best to get your money back because there's a man upon us. All those kind of lines were used against us. And so we're going to take over the business.
But don't report it to the police.
But don't report to the police, please. If you do, then we're all screwed. You get nothing. We go to jail. Okay, great. How's that going to benefit you?
That's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, exactly. So then, we were left in a bit of limbo. What do we do in this circumstance? And some people went to despair when they heard that. They went to depression.
People's life savings are probably in this.
So even me, I was heavily invested. Part of me was thinking, this is from Allah. Risk essentially is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've got some accountability. I probably was a bit negligent and whatnot. I was more concerned about the people I brought in, friends and family. I've got reputation because that's the first word they're going to turn on is me, isn't it? It's the time we trusted you. So I was concerned about that. I said, look, we're in together, but I'm going to do everything I can to find what information I can from the brokers or my friend who's working in the. At that point, my friend had disappeared. He went into depression because, forget me, he brought in tons of people. Millions have come under just him because he's one of the first early investors. And although he didn't lose out money, essentially, from the capital put in, I knew he just could not take, from what I'd heard, he just couldn't handle the whole situation. He went to depression himself because of how immense shock he was in. And essentially, then it was a matter of the investors come together. We realized these brokers had put the wool over our eyes. They were cowboys. There was no way in hell they were going to recover £10 million worth of funds to pay back all the investors. Yeah. And so yeah, this is where we had to come and unify as a group, as investors. A few of us emerged. So we're going to try our best to drive this and find out what's the best options or recovery routes that we can. So we explored a few things. One was, let's play along, or let's liaise with the investment broker. Let's hear out their plan. And also let's communicate a little bit with the business owner. Keep it amicable. And I tried to keep it amicable. I've got his number. I spoke to him, tried to hear his side.
Just a second. Yeah. Was that the very first time you spoke to the business owner?
Since the time I met him, yes. So
wow. So you invested 100,000. You're a VIP customer, yet you've never spoke to the business owner.
So the business owner at the time I visited the warehouse, very beginning. That's it. After then, didn't need to. And essentially, he wasn't someone who's going to communicate with investors. The investment brokers were there to handle the investment, the investors. So people were after him. From what I heard, people were pulling up outside his house. They were threatening him. Some had put him into his car, driven around, beating him up. The owner of the business, give us our funds back. And a few people, whatever he had in his bank account, he wired them across. So they were happy. They were like, okay, we got our money back, whatever. The rest of us, we had no one to go to. Okay, look, how are we supposed to recover our funds? There's definitely not enough in the bank accounts to compensate everyone. And it just seems like everyone's just doggy, that everyone's just going in for whatever they can, their share. And essentially, it's just like, whoever get there first. But that's not the way. I didn't want to operate that way. I don't want to go threatening and all this stuff. Actually, is there a way around it? Is there a way we can actually recover and actually find a route out of this predicament we're in? That's what I really wanted to explore.
With regards to you and the investors pooling together, one of the things that probably was you probably lost sleep over was, yes, say we had some sort of strategy. You know, the police are always on the card. Yeah. They're unregulated, so the FCA, you can't even go to the FCA or any sort of regulator. Surely the next port of call would have been the police. Yeah. Because the money, we're talking about £10 million. He could have siphoned that off to, I don't know, the Bahamas if he wanted to. So how did you establish that there was that pot of money still there?
So that's the thing. We started investigating a little bit further. We got hold of their accounts, their bookkeeping accounts, all the transactions, I think there. And from that, what we garnered was that the transactions coming in, the money investors were putting in was, yes, being paid out to old investors in terms of their returns and profits. So it's fresh money coming in to fund old capital.
Makes it a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw that. But also we could see large commissions. Some of the main beneficiaries of this was the investment brokers, which was a bit of a surprise to us because all along they told us, we've lost out. You know, we're in it with you guys as well. This is a big shock to us as well. But we thought we could see invoices from them, payouts in like 60,000, maybe 1 month, 100,000 as going to the main owners of that investment brokerage firm. I think, what in the world's going on here? Then we realized that these guys had essentially accumulated a lot of, they had a set agreement with the owner that whoever they bring in and stuff, they're going to get a slight cut from it as well, which obviously multiplied. And so they were funding their lifestyle. And what we could hear, they were going abroad, business class, flying over to Dubai, whatnot, funding other businesses from the funds they were taking out of this investment.
No, technically that becomes haram, then everything is haram.
Absolutely. So that brings me to the other point. So we knew in our minds this was haram income that they generated. They've not provided the service that we'd expected, no due diligence. What were they earning money for? Just for a bit of admin, a few emails in here, hundreds of £1,000s a month? Absolutely not. So we realized that the funds that they have taken out as commission, whatever it was, should have been haram, declared haram. So we actually got the Sharia Council involved. We tried to get a fatwa from them to help us put pressure on them by saying, look, it's haram for you guys. You should give it back if you do fear Allah. Okay, because they were convinced, these investment brokers, that this money is legitimate. We've earned it. It's not our fault that we were duped by the investment owner and stuff like that. That's the.
So who does the buck stop with?
That's the thing. So are we the ones who just suck it up? And we're asking, look, if you've got this funds, we don't know where it is. So we tried to investigate where could the fund capital be tied up. What we've realized quickly was nothing was in the UK. A lot of it had been siphoned off to Africa, abroad, Dubai, whatever. So from a litigation perspective, we spoke to a barrister, we realized it would be very difficult to pursue any sort of legal routes in terms of trying to sue them or getting anything, because nothing was in the UK, because very expensive, very difficult. So we sort of realized that actually this might not be a one avenue doing it. So let's try the religious line, let's get Sharia counsel involved. Unfortunately, what happened was these guys did not want to comply, in the sense that they did not want to sit with the panel, explain their side, explain.
Would you if you were them? You wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't, would you?
So they came to the initial session and said, look, we've not asked for this session. We don't take from you either. They came from a different methodology. So with all due respect, we don't take from you guys whatever opinion you come out with, or fatwa. We're not obliged to follow it, because we've taken our own opinions from our own sheikh, whatnot. So we thought, what in the world are we going to do here? So we still press the Sharia council, said, please give us, because they've got a financial division there who deal with financial disputes, please give us a fatwa anyway, that at least we can use as a bit of ammunition, and please let other investors know as well. Cut long story short, what happened was, in the end, because the panel couldn't operate in the way they wanted to get both sides and whatnot, and because they weren't complying with investment brokers, we essentially just got a very generic opinion of how investments work. And if such and such happens, then this will be haram for certain people. And essentially there's a little line there saying, if it is found that agents, brokers are negligent, then that money would be haram for them. But it wasn't a verdict or anything of that sort, because it didn't go through their sort of judicial process and whatnot. So we were left with a paper or a document that produced, which wasn't going to help us. And so we let down slightly.
But surely, if I'm selling you that candle there on the premise that it's a football, then I've lied to you.
Yeah.
If I've led you down that garden path on the premise that it's a football, regardless of whether you're ignorant or not, I've consciously told you a lie. Surely that's haram.
Yeah. So this is what we're pressed with, saying that they've not done their part of it. They were complicit in the lie as well, to a certain degree, because they were communicating what the owner told them. They were communicating that. You can't just say, oh, we didn't know, he lied to us, but you weren't doing your job. You know, you were complicit in that whole thing as well. So the Sharia council, most likely, they probably would have come out with a verdict, which probably would have been in our favor, had they sat down with them and given their side, and then they could have said, okay, we are now in a position to give a fatwa as such. All they could do was just give an opinion on using generic terms, which wasn't specific. So I think in the past as well, they've been in these kind of disputes and they've had threats on themselves. So they were very careful how they get involved in this whole matter as well, especially coming out of the public domain. So I think a part of that was they were trying to protect themselves, and they had a certain process they had to go through. So our hands were tied. We couldn't really pursue that.
They sound ineffective. I don't want to go into that conversation, but if you've got external people that you're supposed to litigate over, pressuring you and forcing you and coercing you, then you're ineffective in carrying out your duties.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we closed that door very early on, and we realized we just have to refer back to the normal mainstream law, you know, the English law, and whatever regulations are out there, we have to pursue that route. And alhamdulillah, something then emerged about a year later, after a lot of stress, a lot of research, a lot of debate amongst investors. We once on our WhatsApp group got a message from my brother saying, oh guys, just to let you know, alhamdulillah, the bankers has paid me back whatever I invested. We're all looking at each other, how in the world? Because this was an initial, obviously your initial reaction right when the whole scam got unraveled, go to your bank. But we knew there was nothing in the bank now. Why in the world is the bank, how is the bank going to get the money if there's nothing in there? And where are they going to pay us out? And why would they pay us out? So what we uncovered was actually some legislation out there to protect people, consumers, from scams.
Yep.
Something called authorized push payment fraud, especially when it happens digitally. There is another
up to 70,000 now.
So this is the new one that's come in. So which is called under the it's called the mandatory framework, mandatory reinvestment framework. It's just got passed last month, October 7th. That was making it obligatory upon the banks now that where a scam has been exposed, and the bank is the one who's hosting the bank account, or with the sender or the depositor, they are obliged to refund straight away the person who's been scammed, as long as it meets certain criteria. At that point, there was a voluntary code amongst the major mainstream banks called the CRM code, the contingent reimbursement model, which effectively meant that if, again, they signed up to it saying, if you've been scammed and the banks were satisfied that you've been scammed and they hadn't protected you as a consumer, as their customer, then they had to cough up the cash essentially and compensate you for that. So this brother, he called up the fraud department, whatever, and eventually got to the right department, and they had agreed with whatever explanation given, and they had compensated him then. So he got his money back straight into his account. He told us on his WhatsApp group, and everyone was a sense of hope that started emerging, because everything else we tried was not going to happen. The business opportunity, they told us they tried recovery funds from a new investment opportunity in gold, selling in Africa. We knew that stuff was not going to happen, and we very quickly realized. And just one thing I didn't mention, we all got a payout of 1.4% of everything that we'd lost out. This is what the brokers that have been able to resurrect, or
1.4%.
1.4%. That's all they could gather from everything, all the assets that were left behind, from the stock left behind and the funds in the bank account. So everyone only got 1.4% back of whatever loss they had.
What about the lavish trips to Dubai and the other businesses?
Exactly. They were never going to put that back in the pot to redistribute. This is what we are.
Because that's their money.
They're thinking there's their money. We also asked investors who'd actually profited from the whole thing and came out with, actually, they were in the green. We said, look, this guy's, the profits you've earned from this, yes, you didn't know it was haram. This is potentially haram because essentially this is someone else's money that has funded you.
Yeah.
And you started coming across with the principles of zulm. You know, someone's profited out of this at someone else's expense, oppression of others. So are you really going to be comfortable having funds like that in your bank account, knowing it's at someone else's expense, someone else's loss?
How did they respond to that?
So we put an appeal out. I think 2 or 3 just came forward and said, look, profits I put in, they said, let's take it back, put it back in the pot, and inshallah we can compensate others. But again, it's not going to be enough. So as I mentioned, so with the bank, this brother had found that it worked, and he encouraged us all to speak to your banks. So everyone started to contact their banks, and we started speaking to them. The initial reaction from the banks is fob you off. So no, it's fraud. It's a civil matter. It was an investment that went wrong. You know, sorry, we can't really help you.
Yeah.
But some people had got through to the right departments. You go to the fraud department. It's a scam department, specialist there, explain the narrative, explain the story properly. And we found more and more people were starting to get payouts, maybe just under £10,000 in terms of what their investment was. But we realized, alhamdulillah, this is working. There is a code out there, CRM code. There is some sort of protection out there, even though it was an FCA regulated. And there's an opportunity that actually we can pursue. There's something we can actually push forward for. So we came together and we started to encourage and help each other. Like, how do you have to explain the story? What are the facts that you need to put forward to the banks to get the right places? And I did the same process as well. Essentially, that we hired the services of a company. Now, this is a meaty commission for them as well. They're experts. They're like expert solicitors in this, where essentially they appeal to the banks on your behalf. If it doesn't work, go to the financial ombudsman under the CRM code and stuff. You know, we're saying under the law that's out there, the code, you are liable, Mr. Bank, so please pay up. And they'll take it all to the financial ombudsman. And that's the route we took. And many got paid out by the banks directly. If the banks did reject it, it went all the way to the ombudsman. And alhamdulillah, majority of people after 2 years started getting their money back. Whatever loss they were on, they looked at what you put in, what you got out in terms of your profits. And alhamdulillah, a lot of people, even including myself, although I got one still pending from a different bank account, I was essentially able to recover half of my funds.
Okay.
So this was the greatest. The fact that people were getting paid out was such a great relief for us. Also from my circle, ones that invested, took 2 years, but alhamdulillah, a lot of them got paid back in their full. And so it was a great learning curve. So we realized, from this, we realized I'm never trusting a Muslim again with his investment.
Wow.
Unfortunately,
strong words.
All of us would come out with that sort of same opinion. If a Muslim's coming out there to sell another opportunity to me, I'll stay away.
I'm mortified. You and I both are Muslim, alhamdulillah. But the fact that you said you're never trusting another Muslim again with investment pieces, even yourself, you as a Muslim should be embarrassed.
Absolutely.
Some
it's such bad. And part of us wanted to go to the media about this, but we thought, again, the reputation of the Muslim, how's this going to look? The amount of money we're talking as well. And it's embarrassing when you're going to the police as well, telling them that it's actually religion was used as a carrot on a stick to dangle in front of you, coerce you in. It's all very embarrassing. And subhanAllah, as we discussed offline as well, there's another investment which has just been exposed this week as well, which is such a carbon copy of exactly what we went through in terms of how it was put together. Muslims were lured in and the whole thing was exposed, and people have lost thousands, if not, I'll say thousands, but it goes into the millions now. And looking back at it, had I seen, the adverts sort of coming in or the investment opportunity given, I would have advised people don't go near it. It seems like it smells like a rat, and it probably is a rat. And it's exactly, I can now, with my experience, I can suss these things out, especially with the high ambitious sort of returns that I promise to a certain community. You realize actually businesses can't sustain those kind of returns. It's not possible. There's something shady going on.
They'd be on the FTSE 100 if they did.
Yeah, exactly. And this is part of the unfortunate thing. Our Muslim community is being targeted a lot.
And that's the reason we agreed to bring this on, because ultimately we have an obligation on our communities to inform them. And alhamdulillah, you got some of your money back, or most of it now. The irony is that you didn't actually get the money back from the business that duped you or the investment brokers. It was the banks that safeguarded you. And obviously what's sort of palpable to me is that you won't trust another Muslim investor. So thank you very much for sharing your story. What I do want to do now is turn your focus and attention to giving us, as the community's a silent majority, advice on what the key red flags are. And I will start you off with someone that's quite prominent, who's alleged to have done similar things to you have done. I think there's been a lot of investigations going on. Is it Akib Hussein?
Akib Ahmed?
Akib Ahmed, yep. So I saw a few articles on him, and he even had a poster with Dr. Zakir Naik. Again, Dr. Zakir Naik is not included in any of his whatever he's purporting to sell, but he even went to the extent to get Dr. Zakir Naik, a picture of Dr. Zakir Naik on his posters. He's been on Islam Channel advertising. Can you just talk to me about that?
Yeah, so although I'm not directly involved in this investment, but it just so happened, it just popped off just last week. And as it's playing out, this is exactly what happened to us. And it's so unfortunate to see Muslims were fallen victims to them. They're going through the same emotional trauma that we did, and now looking for recovery. So this individual, although I don't know him, but I've seen his face on Islam Channel, and everything's in the public domain now. There's lots of videos out there.
5 Pillars have done investigation.
Investigation on this, and there's a lot more media spotlight on this than there was on us. So essentially, he came across as a very practicing Muslim, saying, mashallah, brothers, I've got a great opportunity for you. No effort required from you. Just give your money to us, and inshallah, we'll give you a halal income. This has helped to build our Muslim economy. We want to empower the Muslims, entrepreneurships, encourage in Islam, etc. All the kind of lines you want to hear. And the fact that you're getting great returns. There's no way in hell this person is ever going to scam you, deceive you. He's talking about him doing tahajjud, making dua for you guys as investors.
Wow.
He's talking about he's having dreams, seeing the Prophet ﷺ. All this I was reading on Facebook, saying, is this really for true? And then he's got tears when it comes on videos, just like saying, I feel so passionately about you guys, all this stuff. And it could be crocodile tears, I don't know. So when you see that, I can see how people have been hooked in. Yeah. And in terms of advice, I would say to people, look, we don't know what people's, end of the day, we don't know what's inside them, why they're doing certain things. We don't know what the belief is. A lot of things may be a front where they're saying that. And if you think they're trying too hard in terms of selling Islam, giving all these words, all this Islamic patter, you really need to be cautious about this and think why, especially when they're saying they've been endorsed by these people. Like you mentioned Zakir Naik, and we've seen a video come out of Zakir Naik saying, actually, I don't even know this guy. I never endorsed him. I just had a call with him on a separate matter. And I think he's using his picture, obviously, without his knowledge or his permission. And unfortunately, lots of Muslims have lost that because that whole psychology has been tapped into. These guys are expert marketeers. That's one thing you have to realize.
He's an expert marketer.
He's an expert marketer, but a lot of these guys have got that sort of background. We see the whole thing, how it's emerged from about 10 years ago, this whole Muslim entrepreneurship, these networks and stuff that have developed. They're experts in marketing. They know the Muslim psychology.
He was selling courses, wasn't he, as well?
He was selling courses. That's one of the digital products. But then eventually it was the case of put money in and we're just going to run ads or whatever. And then on the back of this, it was an intangible product to me. And I think people are asking you evidence, how much sales are you generating? And from what I've read, I've seen, or what's been alleged, he was doctoring a lot of the evidence in terms of the photo, the screenshots, the documents. So his own team apparently were being duped as well. So it's not a lie. So these people, what they do is they cover up their tracks.
Even to his own sales team.
Yeah, exactly. And he's saying, look, trust me. How can you not trust me? I'm your brother, all this stuff. And then obviously when they're pressing you, look, we need some sort of tangible evidence. Give us, he's in fraudulently, so manipulating
documents,
things. So that's what you find what these guys are doing. They'll try to buy time as well and say, look, trust me, the Muslims in the day, so Ramadan, I'm fasting, whatever. I'll get back to you later on. I saw a few screenshots like that as well. And they try to buy time a lot. That's one thing they do, whilst they're trying to find some recovery. What's the way I can recover this whole thing before I get exposed fully? How can I save my reputation? And Muslims, what we find is we're overly trusting when it comes to other Muslims. And also, the vast majority are quite financially illiterate, although I said I'm financially literate, but even the ones who are literate, we can sometimes be overtaken by greed, sometimes just being a bit lackadaisical with these kind of things. So you said the vast majority were probably financially illiterate, and when they're sold as halal income, guaranteed, to a certain degree, guaranteed, you're benefiting the ummah.
Tahajjud, barakah.
Yeah, and you're investing and you're putting your trust in someone who prays, who's got a beard.
Makes me sick. It's disgusting.
How can I doubt this person? You think if I doubt this person, I'm doubting Allah. I'm doubting Islam. This is again the psychology people don't have. So when it comes to advice, I would say, guys, just be very, very careful. If they're not regulated, if they're not on the FCA's register, if the investment sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. There's something underlying shady business perhaps going on. And speak to people with some degree of expertise, some knowledge, and if they're sort of indicating red flags, take it seriously. Don't just hide behind it and think, oh, just brush it under the carpet and think, no, this is a wonderful. I don't want to listen to all this criticism or negativity. Really think, how can you protect yourselves? And don't just think, no, I'm going to pull out my cash straight away, because ultimately this is a cycle. Someone's win is that someone else's loss. That's how these Ponzi's work. So you're participating in the dhulm of someone else. So it's better that these things don't grow in the first place, and if it can be exposed as soon as possible before it's amassing millions and millions of pounds of funds. This is where we need as a community to come together and call these things out as soon as it comes to our knowledge, and perhaps some regulations required in the Muslim Ummah as well.
Absolutely.
In the UK or even in the Western world.
Oh, it's just more importantly, put regulations, anything to fear Allah. You know, you're using Allah's name and Allah's religion to make yourself rich in illicit ways. Just to highlight, obviously this investigation is pending and ongoing, and yet for an outcome to be set. Although there's many investigations happening. There was another scheme that happened not so too long ago, a year ago, wasn't it? Was it Hakeem?
It was ITB. It was based on algorithm trading, cryptocurrency. All that
who was the?
So I don't know who. I think it stemmed from America,
right? But
it did impact the Muslim community. So I've done some research on this. I spoke to a couple of people who got stung, and they said the Muslim community, especially around the Midlands, they got affected by this as well.
Who was the offender? What's his name?
I don't know. I don't know the case. It stemmed from America, and there was a few agents, you could say, in the UK who was selling it as well.
Sure.
And again, the returns are like 10% a month. We're doing algorithmic trading of cryptocurrency. You do nothing because our machines are generating the funds. You sit back, enjoy the money, don't ask too many questions. And because it's so complicated, you probably can't understand it anyway, because it's cryptocurrency, algorithms, computers doing the work for you. And again, this was one of our groups. This was being advertised, promoted with a referral scheme. I remember I was speaking to my cousin on this and saying, this sounds like another Ponzi. How in the world could people actually, especially when stung by the investment we were duped by, how in the world could they fall for this now? We can see all the hallmarks. And we try to advise people subtly in the group, like, look guys, be careful of this. It just seems too good to be true. These are not kind of the margins or the returns you would be getting in the mainstream, because the mainstream stock markets will give you probably 5 to 7% in a good year, in a year. And if they're saying 10% a month, think about it.
5 to 7%. Yeah. And I think it comes down to, again, us as Muslims, like I said, we're maybe first, second, third generation, and we're, alhamdulillah, earning some sort of income to come away from investing in properties because of the riba and the usury, and looking into these other financial products. But again, I think you are probably in the minority and an exception because your financial literacy is high. But I'll have to even confess myself, my financial literacy isn't high, but I'm not daft enough to believe that if hedge funds and all other things are offering 5 to 6%, and then this, cowboy, unfortunately Muslim scheme is saying he's going to offer me 10 to 11%. He can barely string a few words together. He can barely speak English himself. Alarm bells should be ringing there. Absolutely. I'm glad you've recouped most of your income. Thank you very much for coming on, and thank you very much for explaining to us and informing us as a communities on what to look out for. But I do think, unfortunately, and this is the elephant in the room here, it saddens me, I'm not naive, that we Muslims, and Muslims that are perceived to look more Muslim than others, more religious than us, you and I perhaps, with the long beards and the hats and the thobes, and using Allah's name every 2-3 words, every 2-3 words in a sentence, and saying we're praying tahajjud. And what's remarkable and what's profound that I'll take away from this is that you said you will never invest into another Muslim financial product.
Most likely.
And how embarrassing is that for us as Muslims? Our religion advocates honesty, transparency. Stay away from zulm, stay away from riba, stay away from oppression. Yet we're using those same tools to beat ourselves with the back.
Okay.
Is there any final words that you have? So
again, brothers and sisters, essentially, when it comes to our risk is written. We all know that. Every penny you're going to earn will come to you. It'll find its way to you. Remember that. We have that thought from Allah. Whatever you lose as well is ultimately being written as well. But we have a sense of accountability. We have to really think about what am I investing in? Is it something Islam encourages? We have this axiom in Islam with no risk. Sorry, with no risk comes no reward.
Absolutely.
You have to take a risk and take a reward. So if it's something guaranteed, you have to ask yourself, is this actually even halal? Because Allah's prohibited this in the Quran from interest, etc., because those are guaranteed sort of returns. So we have to really question ourselves: what are we investing in? What are we doing? Are we tying the camel, essentially? Don't be overcome by greed and thinking, going into this sense of FOMO, which means fear of missing out. Essentially, that's what I went through. My fellow investors did as well. That you think this opportunity will miss me and I've lost out on a better opportunity. Sometimes take a step back, ask Allah, do istikhara, ask Allah to guide you in those matters, and inshallah, you'll take the right course of action. So we need to be aware, educate one another as well. Do share videos like this or other ones out there on YouTube. We have some other very good brothers, Islam Finance Guru as well. They're trying to make Muslim community more financially literate as well, and tell them, what's the best investment vehicles out there, how they can earn halal income, which is also not overly ambitious or going to be participating in oppression or anything of that sort. And they're essentially good, viable businesses. So there are opportunities for the Muslims out there. Alhamdulillah, there's more and more come to the market. They may not be as lucrative as the ones I went to or participated in the ones last year that popped up.
Yeah.
All those kind of things. But be patient. Sometimes a patience game as well. There are things out there. Be patient. Inshallah, things will emerge over time. And that's what I'll say. Yeah, just stick up for one another as well. And when someone is critiquing or criticizing what you're doing, really try to think, okay, are they doing this out of love and care for me? So they're not just being jealous. Don't just think that. Really try to look into it and speak to people of knowledge as well. And try to get endorsements from other people who've done it and who actually have got some greater literacy than yourself. And so that's the best way to do it. And, we have to really protect ourselves and expose these things. If you do see it coming, expose it. And do hold them to account, these owners and stuff.
Thank you very much, brother Tanweer, for the expose. I wish you every success in the foreseeable future. I just want to look to the camera now, and we didn't touch on the trauma and the emotional trauma. The brother mentioned that a lot of people went into depression, and it took him 2 or 3 years to recoup that money. Perhaps his life savings. He did mention he wanted to pay off his current house that he had. So I didn't even talk to you about how you felt throughout those years, how many grey hairs, how many sleepless nights you had. So to those that are thinking of conning other Muslims by using Allah's words, be careful and fearful, because life isn't too long. Life is short, and taking someone else's haqq isn't a small thing. You're better off punching someone in the face than taking someone's haqq. Thank you very much for watching. We shall see you on the next episode. The next episode will be about a legitimate financial advisor advising Muslims on what to invest in and how to educate themselves and develop a financial investment mindset. Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.